Hello, welcome to One Moment Wiser. This is Christy Bridges, and I have Erin Garcia with me. She's a coach and a Splankna practitioner. You may not have heard of Splankna, but we're going to talk about it today. But we are here because this time of year, there are those of us who get excited that it's the new year and we get a new chance to do all kinds of stuff, right? And then there are times when even those of us who get excited just feel like, why bother? You know, what is a new year going to do because I'm never going to get better, or because I'm just so depressed I can't move? Do you find that a lot of your clients deal with that kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely. It's almost like the dip, like the letdown after the big excitement. It's the letdown, and it can be things like too much sugar. And then
Sugar in the holidays?
Yeah, exactly. Synonymous, right? And a dip in energy because of that, and just the weather, all the leaves are gone, the beauty of the season's gone, the lights are going down, and everything takes on a little starkness and a little bit of blah.
Dreary.
And, grayed out. And so people, sometimes they look to that as, am I depressed or am I just down a little bit?
Right. And, down is one thing. We all get that way. But down can turn into something that lasts a lot longer and saps our motivation a lot worse. Sure. So it takes examining. And when we're talking this year about mental health, our goal this year is to examine those things that take away our joie de vivre, right? Our joy of life, the things that hold us back from being the people that God intends us to be. Yeah. And we're going to look at ways this year that God gives us wisdom when we ask. James 1:4 says he gives us wisdom without any judgment, without any wisdom, without, what is he? Oh, I can't think of the word, but without looking down on us for asking. He loves to show us things. And so we're learning about things that God has given us that help us with those times that our mental health isn't its best, the things that God gives us that helps us to have good mental and life health.
Yes.
So you said your clients this time of year just find themselves dealing with the too much sugar and the blahs of, the holidays and this season. What do you do?
Well, there's many, many techniques, even in the coaching realm, of which I am, and then the practice of Splankna, which I'll explain in a little bit. But one thing that I was sharing with you earlier is there's negative emotions that depression is a little bit broader term, scoops up and just represents with those three, the three top ones are fear, anger, and guilt. And so those emotions trigger a greater depression, if you will.
So depression can come from fear, anger, and guilt.
Which is not in balance. When they're unbalanced. And so what that looks like is anger offsets the beautiful optimism that we could have, right? Or fear steals our hope, because there's just no hope, which is part and parcel with depression. You lose the hope. And then the third one, which is the worst, I think, is guilt comes in. Maybe we ate too much, right? We're guilty.
Right.
But guilt can become a negative emotion, unbalanced, and it crushes joy. And then we feel like we don't even deserve to enjoy any pleasure at all. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's an unbalanced view of guilt, because, people will talk about their guilty pleasures.
Right? Well, I find myself sometimes, I don't recognize it as fear immediately, but just overwhelm, which is a hidden version of the fear of not being enough or not being capable enough.
Right.
And it makes me either want to hide, I just want to go to sleep and let the world pass me by because I'm afraid I won't be good enough anyway, or I end up, if I have just a little bit of anger added in, a little frustration added in, I end up in the kitchen, and I'm sticking things in my mouth, guilty pleasures,
Yeah.
right?
At
But
what
they're
time
not that
of-
pleasurable.
No. What time of the day do you do this?
Oh, yeah, right? Well, whenever somebody gets on my last nerve.
Which is kind of a
Yeah.
trigger. We were saying not all triggers are external, but from within, there may be an associated memory with, wow, this time of the year when I was 5 years old, there was some terrible incident. I don't remember, but somewhere it's hidden inside, and that is triggering from the sense of a residue of buried emotion that's negative.
Buried emotions
That's
can be
what
tough.
that
And
is
that's what
where-
you've helped me uncover.
Yeah.
Is to find those, the bottom, get to the bottom of the problem,
Right.
and be more aware when I am triggered.
Right.
Because it's not always the situation that's causing, that is the problem. A lot of times it's something in me and in my history
Yes.
that is causing the problem of responding wrongly. And
Yes.
that does lead to depression.
Right.
Boy, I tell you feel, when you don't recognize what you're doing or why, you just feel worthless and hopeless, right?
That's right. And if we stay in anger, the result really is an agitated place. We're constantly on the battlefield. And we're constantly against something.
Right.
Or we feel like things are constantly against us. So we look
Yes.
at life that way, and that's one of those negative emotions that comes and can trigger or be over balanced in a bad way, see? And it goes into a tie-in with depression. So then fear, while it steals our joy, we dread the future, we don't have hope. Hope is a big thing there. And then we feel like we're not good enough and so we don't have the hope,
Right.
and maybe we don't even deserve to have the hope or the joy of a future event. And it's just all kind of tied up in a big ball of wax.
And it's like being covered in being buried, I guess, in sticky tape. The more you try to wrestle free, the more it sticks to each other, and pretty soon you're
Yeah.
like this. And I think that there is an enemy of our soul who
Yes.
likes to get us bound up
Yes.
in ourselves. And sometimes we don't go to God for the help that we need, and we end up digging ourselves deeper into
Right.
those problems. So what do you do?
So my quest was to find roots, and always has been. Actually, I've been in the inner healing field, in addition to coaching and pastoral counseling for years. Currently, more of the coaching with this new wonderful tool, because it's so very. It arrests all these things at such a deep level. And so I looked into neuro-emotional technique with a faith base, and they use the name Splankna. Splankna means the innermost being, and think of a cave, the splunking of, they do call it splunking.
The spelunking into a
spelunking.
cave? That's great.
And it's the deep dive into the cave, right? The excavation into the root causes. And so the name has stuck. I think they used to be called theoenergetics, and it sounded like an exercise program. And so that just didn't do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I took the training, and I've been doing it for 8 years now as a master practitioner. And it goes in, especially at the holiday time. You would think people would not want to come in. Not so.
Oh, that's when we find some of our worst triggers. We're
That's
around
right.
family or people from the past
Yep.
that want to drag us back into old behaviors or push our buttons,
That's
right?
right. And so they call me and say, "Can you help me with this?" Which is making me feel depressed.
Right.
All of the above, or hopeless. Very similar terminology. So what I do then is, or what I've found with this technique, is we can go into a chart, which I'll show you guys. It's a chart of these negative trauma emotions, and you can't see it from there, but many of them, there's the area of the spleen and pancreas that's the real troubled area. The white area is things like grief, sadness. There would be some of that in the lung area, and then the blue area is fear, which is in the bladder and kidney area. Then we've got the anger area, the liver and gallbladder area, which is resentment, galled, and people go, what's galled? And anger. Now, surprising, where do we find depressed on this chart? It's right here in the middle of the anger column. So those are very tied up. Anger turned inward.
Anger turned inward is depression. My husband's counselor once told him that.
And there it is on the chart. And then this red part of the chart is all crazy things.
Crazy things.
It's the wild card.
Hilarious. So why are these related to parts of our body?
That is the neuro method. It's old science that there's circuitry and intention. So there are meridian points that are in the body that chiropractors and acupuncturists use, and those are related to the flow of things in our body, and the organ points are the storage.
You know, for centuries, people recognized that we are electrochemical beings, right?
Yes.
We have our brain basically goes all over our body. The things that traumatize us or hurt us or frustrate us or make us afraid, those things transmit to all over.
Oh, yeah.
And then for, I don't know, a few decades, people got the idea that it's all in your head, right? And we're starting to come back to the reality that no, the body stores. Yeah, the body keeps the score. That's a book we'll talk about later this year. Yeah.
And when the body keeps the score, what do you do with all that trauma? It's like a large computer where you have little viruses that are stored in little files. So we have to delete those out to let the whole thing function better.
Yes.
And so there's another book called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And I can't remember the author right now, but
I'm thinking of zombies.
Yeah. They never die. They just never do. And so what happens is these are stored, these emotions stored right with the same emotional charge as when we went through it. And that's the key thing. They're going in the similar intensity.
Yes. And what happens when you store a battery too long in a flashlight, right? Eventually it corrodes and the flashlight doesn't work.
Yeah.
And when we store toxic emotions and experiences in our bodies without dealing with them, they corrode and we end up with physical ailments because emotions will out if you don't address them. If you don't accept and look at what you're going through and begin asking God to help you, then you will act out in ways that destroy your life, or you will internalize it to the point where it destroys your body. So, but you would think that when we're talking about discovering the root of things, that this is a years-long process that you have to go through, right?
Well, no. Because change shouldn't take decades.
Yes.
Is exactly.
We want change now.
That's
right.
That's right. It somehow accelerates the process.
Yes.
And it's very magical almost, but I don't like to use that word. Okay, strike that. Yeah, but
it seems supernatural to our understanding.
It's a phenomena, though.
Yeah.
And God loves tools, and He uses many, many things to help us. Even the medical community. Obviously, we all need the medical community at times, right?
Oh, yeah.
And homeopathy or naturopathy. How do you say that word?
Naturopathy.
That's it. There's a way to say that word too. And of course, all the alternative things that have been coming up. 40 years ago, chiropractors were considered whacks because I was there. Because I'm not young, and I'm not old either. It's just a number.
Throughout history, we frown on things that we could be making good use of or learning how to operate better.
That's right.
So we thank God that He continues to be patient and teach us.
That's right. And so chiropractic has become of age, and it's mainstream, and people will go to them for many, many things. So I'm so I'm a very solution-oriented person, and so what this tool does, Christy, would you like to be my guinea pig today?
I would. I'll be your guinea pig. But this is, guys, just because I believe in being vulnerable.
That's right, and we won't tell you too much after just the demo part. Yeah.
And I have been through this before.
Yes.
Thankfully, you actually opened my eyes to how fun this type of therapy. I mean, I can't, it sounds silly to say therapy is fun, but there's a freedom
Yes.
that comes. And I have never laughed as much as I did when we did Splankna. And I can't tell you that you'll laugh if you ever go to Splankna. But it was, for me, just a very freeing process from some heavy stuff. And
That's right.
so, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so maybe a central emotion around, I don't know, what do you want to name it? Career, food, money.
You know, this year I've going back to trying again with handling my intake, right?
Sure.
For the last couple of years, I have allowed stress and a codependent destructive relationship to cause me, you know, to cost me my sanity when it comes to food. And so this year I'm reclaiming that. I went to codependency class last year and made some balance in that relationship.
Yes.
But yeah, I think we could, let's focus
Do that
on
one.
that.
Is that all right? You're brave. So we're doing a little bit of, what's this? This is called applied kinesiology, and it's muscle testing. And we'll find out, I can check with this chart. I know how to do it. We search and find out her main emotion, her central emotion. And so she's letting me do that, right? Don't give me too much resistance. So just a little bit. She's a little embarrassed, probably. No.
I'm in charge.
So I found it very
Okay.
quickly once she relaxed. And it's called hopelessness. Hopelessness is her central emotion.
That is something I've struggled with food, for
Yes.
sure.
And we just, I just tested her spleen pancreas is where it's found. And that's at the time of trauma. You made this easy. So now we're going to go and touch the points as though it was circuitry plus intention in her mind body.
Okay.
So we're going to touch your spleen pancreas, which is right about there.
Okay.
And then she's going to touch her left temple. I'm doing everything backwards over here. So close your eyes.
That is my left, right?
Yes, because this is my right.
Okay.
So I'm mirroring you, Christy. So close your eyes and think about hopelessness for just a few minutes. Okay. And so I'm going to ask her to relax and come alive again. I didn't put you out or anything. Just open your eyes and tell me what you experienced there. Was there any thoughts? Did you see any particular thing? And this is all current in real time. You know.
So I could feel the hopelessness because of, you know, I've been struggling with eating since I was probably 5 years old. I could feel the hopelessness, and my first thought with words was, no, I am not letting this take me, you know, and no, I'm fighting this.
Yes, that's very good. Okay, now I get to check and see if we're clearing. And there she goes. And you cleared. And so if we were in a full session, as you remember, we would come in and find the secondary emotions and then maybe any self-limiting belief that's causing this.
Yeah.
And maybe, possibly, if we're going back and, you know, it would show if we're going back to a point of reference, say at 4 or 5 or 7, 8, or we'd find a time frame that she's triggering off of because it's been buried.
Where some kind of false understanding of what happened in my life,
Yes.
or false understanding of how I was expected to be,
Yes.
was causing, you know, when we're young, we make
inner
false contracts with ourselves,
Yes.
right? Or contracts with ourselves based on false understandings.
Yes. And
Yeah.
beliefs and vows and lies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're grown-ups now. We can overcome that.
That's right. And so what we're finding, you did great, very
you.
good. And so with the applied kinesiology, it reveals where some of this came from. And God is the healer. This is just simply a tool, but it is an amazing tool. And I know that, you know, we've had fun and we've laughed during the process because Christy and I see humor in a lot of things. But the healing process itself is very serious, very important, very impactful. And I personally have had probably 50 sessions because I'm not, you know, I need it too. And I'm a former anorexic, over-recovered, I call it. And so I know that there's embedded in some of those beliefs about food or what it represents. It's not really the food. It's our relationship with something that becomes a tool or a coping mechanism, right? And so I've had some great, wonderful sessions myself finding the root of where this came from. And so it's been wonderful time, 8 years,
Yeah.
and helping a lot of people set free.
And you always sent me home with homework.
I did.
You did. Because once I leave your office, I have to face a house with a kitchen and friends who want to go have dinner, right?
That's right, that's right.
And you always sent me home with a tool to help me overcome by disrupting my
The negative
Yeah.
thought and the negative. So we went to a collarbone statement. And actually, my other beautiful tool here is finding the positive. And you know
Yes.
what? If we remove the negative, we need to put the positive back in.
yes.
And the thought here is God says, oh, no. I'm not offering you that negative emotion. That's a trauma emotion. I want you to have abundant life.
That's right.
I want you to partner with me for abundant life. So I go in here and we have a beautiful tool called Creative Emotions, which God says he offers Christy right now instead of hopelessness.
Yes.
He says, I offer you things like hopeful, expectant, empowered, inspired, with a Bible verse there, Psalm 43:5. And so, are you ready?
Yes.
Let's do our collarbone statement.
Okay.
And maybe this is for everyone here.
So you
It's-
find a place just underneath your collarbone.
Yes.
And this, it distracts your mind from the negative, and it actually, I know that there's probably too much to explain
You're
here, but it
imparting.
has to do with your electricity, your body's electricity.
Yes, and your vagal system. And you're actually imparting this back in.
Yes.
And so she's going to say something like, my entire being
My entire being
says yes
says yes
to the change God is bringing
to the change God is bringing. Thank you, Lord.
instead of hopelessness.
Instead of hopelessness,
Let me experience
let me experience empowerment
and hopefulness
and hopefulness
and expectancy
and expectancy
and inspiration.
and inspiration.
And then we're going to enter it right here. And
wait,
this
wrong
is,
hand.
yes, right by that baby finger. This is the vagal nerve. And the vagal nerve is hooked up to neurotransmitters way up here. And it says, hey guys, it's going to be different now. And it responds to sound, which is why you did that.
Oh, okay.
And so so now I'll see if her body took it. And your body says, I took it.
Awesome.
And that is one of our wonderful exercises
Yep.
within Splankna.
It may seem weird, guys, but this kind of stuff is, if you think about it, God invented us, right? And it took us millennia just to discover the brain cells that help us get from the kitchen to the door. Just to discover place cells and navigation cells. It took us millennia just to discover how our neurons are actually flexible enough to change pathways. Even when we're old, you can teach an old dog new tricks. So if you allow God to be smarter than us, and you allow your defenses to come down and you to expect that God could teach you something today, then I want to just encourage you to go for it. Go for it. And in His Word, God tells us all kinds of things about mental health. So Monday through Friday, we'll be doing daily devotions to build our mental health, to give us hope in the future that God has for us. But today, how can our viewers take advantage of the tools that you've talked about?
Okay, so I'm in the Tulsa area locally, and you can just look up erinkgarcia.com. That's the website, and on there is all my contact information. And then if you're not in this area, you may go to the splankna.com, SPLANKNA.com, and they have a list of different practitioners, actually countrywide. They've probably trained about 4,000 now or 5,000 practitioners. So you could find someone in your area as a practitioner.
That's right. So right now, I just want to encourage you, call on God, whatever help you need. Call on Him and leave us a comment. If you need prayer or if you have an experience you want to share, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you.
God bless you today. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.